Can you hear me now? Great. So thank you, Omar. Now I would like to introduce Gil Shwed. Gil Shwed is the CEO and co-founder of Checkpoint, and he was the inventor of the modern firewall. So I'm happy to invite Gil Shwed to the stage. Gil, I would like to ask you one question. As the veteran of the security industry, how do you think that the industry needs to change and is going to change?
I think big focus should shift from detecting attacks to preventing attacks. And actually that's the main subject of my presentation today. So I won't try to answer it in 1 second, but we'll try to show you the full presentation. So let's set the computer up and
Balta?
we okay? Great, just 1 second. להעביר אותו שלא יהיה דופליקט סקרין, שיהיה שני מסכים. Okay, sorry about that, and I think we are, just 1 second. Okay, we are ready to start. So, I think you saw in the previous presentation, and probably in some of the panels here before, that cybersecurity is a challenge. We know the threats are growing. This is one study showing almost a 40% increase just last year in cybersecurity space. We also have seen in the previous presentation, this is a major discussion in every boardroom. And you can see here a study by the New York Stock Exchange showing that 80% of board members indicate that cybersecurity is discussed in every board meeting, yet only two-thirds of them are not confident that they have the right strategy. By the way, these are the two-thirds that know what's happening. The one-third that's confident that everything is working fine, these are the one-third that don't know what's going on. So why is that? And why do we see that so much is invested and yet on the same time we have such a big challenges? And especially when we draw the analogy between our real world or physical world, the way we know it, to cyberspace, fighting against cyberspace is really different. And let's look at a simple example. I visited the bank recently, and I visited their security operations center, and they showed us some interesting statistics. Robbing banks and the conventional crime against the banks, it's a well-known traditional crime, and which we are fighting for hundreds of years. Let's see what's happening there. Frequency, 2-3 times a year. What's the potential damage? The bank doesn't keep more than $5,000 accessible in every branch, so the potential damage is about $10,000 a year. If we look in contrast, in the same bank, in their cybersecurity operations center, they see about 20 to 30 incidents per hour, and the potential damage of just what they've seen is over $50 million. So when we really try to compare the conventional attacks into cyber attacks, we see a lot of differences. In the conventional attack, we have very clear borders, very clear territory. We know who can attack our country. We know who's around our house. We know the limitations there. We look at the cyberspace. The attacks can come from anywhere in the globe. We don't necessarily know who's attacking us. And that makes it much harder to collect intelligence. That makes it much harder to stop the attackers that come from all over the world. And the same thing goes when you look at the attack weapons that our people are using. In the conventional crime or even the conventional warfare, the weapons that we need to fight for are quite basic. Gun, knife, baseball bat is a damaging tool. If you look at the cyber attacker, every kid and every criminal can have access to the most devastating tools. When you see here some example, the Loki toolkit, the Stuxnet that a few years ago was invented by cyber superpowers, and suddenly in a day it becomes a tool that every attacker, every kid on the blocks can use. So if we try to look at the analogy, in cyber attacks, the attacks can come from anywhere. They can go to anyone. It's automatic tools that scan the network. They can come at any time. And they are using the most damaging tools, not just the basic tools that we are trying to fight on a day-to-day basis. And that makes all of us very, very vulnerable. So how can we stay protected? What do we need to do differently? So in conventional protection, we rely mainly on detection and alerting. We have an alarm, we have a security camera. We think that if the attacker will be seen, they won't attack us. We have an alarm system, and again, we think that if the sound will go on, the attacker will go away. And what happens if not? We think that we will catch them, we will punish them, or in the case of nationwide security, we will retaliate. And the key weapon that we have is basically the deterrence. The attackers will be afraid because there is a consequence to something that they'll do to us. Now let's look at cyber protection. Let's see if all these human principles that we use in our daily life work. So detect and alert. Frankly, it's pretty hard to attack them. Many of the attacks are very evasive. Can we punish? The attacker actually doesn't care. The alarm can go on. We can have alerts that somebody is trying to break into our system. The attacker that's inside the system doesn't care. They sit in a completely separate place in the world. They're using a server in a different continent, and they don't care that you see them doing what they are doing. Can we fight back? There's really nobody to fight. There's really nobody to punish in most attacks. And you can see that the number of cyber criminals being caught is very, very small, definitely compared to conventional crime. And we're thinking about deterrence. There is really nobody we can discourage. It's very, very hard. Our technology system and our legal system is not built to deal with this kind of attacks. So what can we do? We need to think differently about cyber attacks. We cannot rely on the cyber think or the conventional thinking and on the traditional tactics. And we cannot rely on the fact that if we detect the attack, we'll end that. And I'm saying that, and I think it sounds very obvious, yet on the same time, we've done a survey in a recent cybersecurity conference, and we've seen the companies that presenting technologies. Almost 80% of the new technologies focus solely on detecting attacks. And again, detecting alone is not enough. And what we need to do is to look at a different approach. And that approach cannot be, and there is, by the way, on the nation level that I think many of you represent, were invested hundreds of millions of dollars in building security operation centers, in building cyber rooms that collect intelligence, that detect attacks. And at the end, there is very little we can do with that information. And we need a different approach. And this different approach tells us that yes, we can prevent the attacks, so we need to focus about prevention. And that's our mission. We need to help and we need to think about one step ahead about how to prevent the attack. So how to prevent the attack? What are the main principles? First is really focusing on blocking. Second, we need to defend with the most advanced technologies, because we need to block not only yesterday's attack, and we need to block them, by the way. If we don't block the attacks from last year and from 15 years ago, they'll come back. So we still need to block all types of attack, all the new, and mainly we need to focus on tools that will block tomorrow's threats. Finally, we need to look, and I'll show a few slides about that too, not just at the conventional places we use to stop attacks, but we need to look at every frontier, from our mobile to the cloud. And last and not least, and I think it's also appeared on my previous presentation from Accenture, it's not enough to look and say we have one solution, 10 solution, 20 solution, and a typical enterprise today might have more than 24 disparate solutions for security. We need to look at security as one system with one strategy, consolidating all the elements into one system and one architecture. And that will help us to block attacks before they happen. So let me show you a few examples, and I really don't want to be too much self-promotional about Checkpoint, but that's the example I can use from what we're doing. So let's look at two key areas. One is what we call zero-day attacks, attacks that are yet unknown and we need to prevent them. So we have a technology called Sandblast, and I'll show you in a second some characteristics of that. So this is one key element. Blocks the attacks that we still haven't seen, the new ones, and block them in real time. And second, which I think is an area that you can all relate to, we all carry in our pockets these great devices, these mobile devices. This is the real new backdoor into all of our lives, our enterprises, our countries. All the information that we see, that we hear, that's around us is going through these devices, whether we know it or not. These devices hear us all the time, they see us all the time, and all the information that we see, and they broadcast all the time through the public network, so we don't have any control about them. So protecting the new mobile forefront is a very critical element, and yet, by the way, how many people here have a mobile security something on their mobile phone? Okay, nice percentage, about 5 to 10% of the people in this room, which are security experts. Now think about the general population. I think it's less than 1% of people use anything to protect that. But protecting that is not simple. If we look at the Sandblast technology, for example, there's over 27 technologies that prevent different types of attacks in different methods in this simple buzzword that I use, Sandblast, that is against zero-day attacks. And every month we add a new technology that can fight new types of attacks and new generic types of potential attacks. And you can see some of the buzzwords here. In the interest of time, I won't go through all of them, but you can hear a very interesting half-an-hour explanation about each technology. And last and not least, we need to take all that information and everything we've seen, and again, that also appeared on the previous presentation, and collaborate. And we operate a network that's called Threat Cloud, that every one of our customers that's using that network informs us about the attacks that they've seen, and in real time we translate them into protection. So if one customer has done the security analysis automatically and seen a new type of attack, immediately that attack will be blocked by all the other customers and all the other networks. There's more than 50,000 networks on this Threat Cloud network already in real time. Not tomorrow, not in 5 days, because the damage of the attack starts this second. Just to give you a few statistics, every day we add to the network over 100,000 malicious domains or URL. Every day we add to that network 600 file characteristics that can, of different file types that can be damaging. This is a huge amount of information. So we've seen how we translate that through new technologies that will prevent the attack, but last and not least, we need to look at every frontier. And if in the past we've focused on our personal computer, that's the endpoint, and again we heard from Accenture, 400,000 endpoints, that's a big network that needs to be protected. And we at Checkpoint focused on protecting the network and everything that is going through the network gateway. That's not enough to the modern world. That was yesterday, it's still very important. Today we also need to protect the cloud. We also need to look at the virtualized data center. Some of it may be on our premises, some of it may be outside our premises. We need to look at the mobile, which I already spoke about, which in my mind, that's the real backdoor to the enterprise these days. And that's today. If we look at the future, what we need to be prepared for, we need to look at the Internet of Things. Every device that we carry can be a backdoor to our network. We need to look at the national security level. Again, not just collecting information, not just building security operations center that gives us intelligence with no army to stop the attack, no army to fight. And we look at our critical infrastructure. And this is not future like in 20 years we will need that. This is the future. These attacks already happened. We need to build the systems for that futures. So we are moving from network and endpoint to a much broader landscape and much broader universe that we have to defend. So to summarize, if in the past we used strategies that were mainly reactive, we've seen a new type of attack, we've used many detection products, we need to move to a strategy that's proactive, that's holistic, and that's focused not on detection but on prevention. If before we looked at two major vectors of attack, network and endpoint, today we need to look at a much more holistic space, network, endpoint, mobile, data center, and the cloud. And if before our architecture was point solution, multiple consoles, complicated management, we need to look at one consolidated system, single strategy, and single management. And that's what we encourage all of you to think about, and that's what we challenge ourselves to build, one consolidated system, single management that takes security one step ahead to be ready for the future. So thank you very much for being with us today here in Tel Aviv, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.